Good evening, Line Golf Academy members, and welcome back to episode 38 of the Reddit Golf Swing Analysis series. In this series, we do diagnose swing submissions that were submitted to me with face on and down the line. Now, keep in mind, this is not to replace golf lessons or any sort of instruction. This is just my personal opinion on what cause and effect can do for some of your swings. When you do submit these, if you do want to submit them, please leave me some notes. Let me know some injuries that you have because I can't really tell from videos. Keep in mind that this is also the first time I watch these videos to keep it very interesting, just to kind of see what cause and effects we can find this out together. But on the side note, I'm also starting a Reddit live golf talk every Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So for all my Redditors out there, tune on in and we're going to talk about golf swings. And if you do like this, hit that like and subscribe and share the content. It really helps to grow the channel. My goal is to help educate you so you don't go on your own and start destroying your golf swing without knowing you are. But with that being said, let's get down to it. First, we have Alex. Now, Alex, I believe, is a resubmission. That's great. I always like to take resubmissions. I always like to see what's going on in his notes. He says he's trying to hold his weight shift on the inside of his back foot. It tends to sway a little bit and it's causing inconsistencies. Naturally, swaying does that. Another thing he has with is compression. I scoop the ball sometimes. At an impact, my shaft is almost straight. I'm not quite sure what that means, but we'll take a look at it from the cameras and see what we can pick up. Is there anything you think that can help me be more consistent? Okay, let's take a look. So we're going to do down the line with this one first, just to see. Whenever we talk about consistency issues, we make sure that we check everything that we can in terms of alignment. Right away, Alex, you do look a little bit crowded. I mean, there's not much room for these hands and arms to go through. You can see your arms are almost touching your thighs. I would expect some sort of manipulation to create some room as your arms try to get that secondary plane line. But let's just take a look and see what's going on. Okay, shoulders look a little bit misaligned, a little bit open. You can see that left arm, this trail arm here, is hovering and covering this lead arm. So typically that's, one side is straightening out. That usually opens up the shoulders. So check your alignment, check your whole body alignment. You definitely want to get some spacing behind you. If I draw a straight line from your heels up to the sky, you can see it's going right through like your back here, the middle of your back, and your toes are going right through your chest. So your heels, your feet are actually supporting your chest, which is not necessarily the center. The center is, right over here, over that hip socket. So you want to definitely back up a little bit. Feel like you're leaning a bit forward to give you some spacing for your hands and arms to move. And yeah, a little bit of raising, a little bit of manipulation going on, specifically with that open shoulders. Open shoulders. Let me check your tilting. All right, let's check this out, because this might be another issue here too. So based on your tilting, your starting tilt, your shoulders should get to about there. Yeah, they're good there. And then you see, come on up. So now your new shoulder tilt is flattened out. Now when you flatten out your shoulder tilt, that naturally lowers your plane. It appears laid off. I definitely think some shoulder tilting issues, and again, that could be because the center of your body is not quite centered. It's more over the front part of your body, and maybe your shoulders raising up to feel like it needs to be more centered over your heels, but it could just be something going on with the way but it could also just be something with your range of motion. So, but you look pretty fit. I mean, you look pretty able. However, okay, let's just go ahead and now redraw some lines here, now that we know that you do raise up a little bit. So you can see how low that plane is. I mean, it's really close, really low to your body. It's going to be a lot of manipulation here, but you do it pretty well. I mean, you definitely get away with a lot, which says something about your athletic ability. So let's draw a little thing over your head. See that head movement? Pretty steady. Get to that top plane line. Okay, yeah, it's definitely flatter because of that shoulder turn. Shoulder tilt leveling out. You might want to feel like your right shoulder. It's always tough with lefties. You got to flip everything. Your right shoulder goes a little bit further down. That'll get your hands to raise up a little bit higher more naturally. And you don't feel like you're laying the club off. With the way you're setting up, this club should be here. Now let's take a look on the way down. Yeah, you're just getting trapped a little bit. You will be able to tell from the front view, it does look like you're spinning out a little bit with your lower body. you try and transfer that weight's still stuck on your toes. You can see as you're driving in that your left foot definitely trying to push off, but it kind of looks like it's stuck on the toes. It just gets to the heel there. A little bit delayed with that action. Again, I think it's because you're very close. Your center is too close to the golf ball. Your feet, the center is always going to be over your middle of your feet. So you're going to be fighting to stay in this position. Now, when you're trying to create some room, the only thing you have left to do is kind of level your shoulders out to create some sort of room for them to go in the slot. Because if you don't, and you get too much tilting, or at least enough tilt to match your spine angle, that hand is going to crash right into your knees. So you've kind of developed this fanning the club open. When you fan the club open, it looks decent here. It's a little bit open to your spine angle. It should actually be at this point touching where these lines intersect. And then as you take that club back, you see the club face is really wide open here. And then all of a sudden you have to get that club to kind of close on down on you. Could be a hand manipulation right at impact, which is what you feel like you're scooping the ball. It's just a little disconnected, and specifically with that right shoulder coming on through. Look at the exit path. So you see the club here, and your elbow kind of pops out, but then you can already see your hands. I mean, that's a pretty quick exit path. So your hands have already crossed over to the other side of the chest in a pretty short amount of time. Your hands are here, and they've gone from here in a very short amount of time. So you want more stability. It just looks like you're firing too soon and playing catch up at impact. So I hope that helps from this side. Let's go to the face on and see if we can spot anything. Okay, Alex, let's take a look now. We got the face on. Let me see if I can make this a little bit larger. There we go. Not much, but it's every little bit counts. Yeah, already I can see it. There's a disconnection there right away. Not a lot of total body turn from this point of view. Arms are already disconnecting. Get to the top. Yeah, it's very noodle arms here. Not a lot of spacing between your hands and your head. So there's definitely some catch-up work here. Slight lean into the target, which tilts you the wrong way. And then you're just playing catch-up. Lower body's firing a little too soon. So you can see this area here is just so disconnected. At this point, the hands should be at least here. I know it doesn't look like much, but that makes a world of difference with the lower body more stable. So, this thrusting of the lower body is playing havoc with you, because now your hips are like tilting back because of the thrust. But to keep you balanced, your shoulders are still kind of leaning the other way. So you're almost leaning to try and time the thrust to keep you balanced so you stay upright. So there's definitely disconnections going on here. You can see that your left hand really kind of, it's a decent release, but your whole body's turning so much that your exit path is really low. Plus you have a release because of that open club face, because you fan it out too much. But where does this all start from? It all starts from your basics. So again, for those that are watching this, for anybody that watches this, always check your grip alignment, setup, posture. Before you start messing with things in your swing, before you start looking at impact, you have to cover those 4 basics. Because if those 4 basics are secure and adequate enough, your swing can evolve around it naturally. But then it comes down to your body makeup and your body set, and are you flexible enough? So a lot of things we overlook, and I'm covering this on our Thursday talk. So Alex, I hope that helps you. Let me know. So my recommendation is, get with somebody that can help you with GASP, grip alignment, setup, posture. For me, it looks like your alignment's a little bit off, your posture's too close. You back it up, get some room, keep things more connected. There's plenty of connection drills out there, but if you need some extra help, let me know in the comment box. But hope that helps you. And I'm pretty sure I guessed wrong last time where you're from, so I'm going to guess wrong again. We're not going to say Wichita, because what are the odds of you being from Wichita? I would have got off that cycle already, so I'm just going to say Chicago. I don't know why, but that looks like a beautiful Chicago little house over there. But let's see who is next. Okay, next up we have Liam. Liam, welcome to the golf swing analysis. Liam, unfortunately, the only video that came through was the down the line, but I'll try my best with it. Down the line's a little tough when trying to look at centeredness. I can look at from this view and see how you're holding your posture, but in terms of your centeredness in the golf swing, it's hard to tell with this view. Hard to tell with ball position. I can kind of take a guess at ball position is okay, but ball position really does affect how you set up, specifically with a longer club. So if we just take a look at your motion without drawing any lines first, I see a little bit of swaying going on from right to left. You do a really good job of holding down your posture. definitely lower body driven. One thing, just be cautious of this, is it does put a lot of excess pressure on that lower left side of your back here. And this is the second left in a row. This is pretty cool. We've got lefties. Maybe the other two will be lefties too. It'd be an all lefty show. But you can see the arms definitely getting a little bit independent of the body. So consistency wise, you might suffer on some days. Some days you might hit the ball really well when your timing is on, and some days you're struggling. So there's no real in between. It could be, the occasional good shot on those struggling days, but the days you time everything well and you're feeling good, look out, because you're probably a really good ball striker when that occurs. But let's take a look just for education purposes. What's going on here? Spine angle there. Arms aren't quite hanging down as much as I would like to see, even with the longer clubs. Okay, let's take a look here. So the arm placement looks okay. Your shoulder alignment, however, looks a little bit open, specifically to your feet. Now, that could be a ball position thing. I can't really tell from this view, but double check that. Make sure that everything is pointing at least in the right direction, because if your planes are starting out, your shoulder plane is starting out slightly open to your hips and your feet, things can get a little misaligned. Now, I'm not sure if this is your normal setup or if this is just that day, but you can see that club head goes really high out and away, which is okay. Club face is pretty open at this point compared to your spine angle. As a result, you get that club really high. Now, this is a good position if you can reroute it, which you do a pretty good job. You can see the arm kind of dropping down below. Left elbows tucked in, left shoulders dipping down to help you stay in that spine. And you can see this here. That club is pretty much on plane. It's a little bit more shallow than I would like to see, specifically with your high hand. So there's a lot of manipulation here, but that is quite the angle there. So you do a good job. Club face is closing down, and it needs to close down more because that body's wide open. So if you take a look here, as that, your body's really wide open, the club face is still open to your spine angle. Now, there's not much more turn you can do there. So, ideally, if you have a really spinning motion, if you really spin a lot in the top of your swing, part of that spin should be closing that club face down for you. But because you can see there's a lot of turn, a lot of spinning, the club face is still open, you do have a very last second little, kind of not necessarily a flip, but now look how close that club face is. So it went from pretty open to back to being closed, and we haven't seen your hands yet, so that's a sign that the hands have really kind of helped out. So there might be some disconnection issues going on. It's hard to tell from this view. Front view would really help me out to see how connected you are to your chest, but you do a fantastic job of staying in your spine angle. Hand path, you can see how high that hand path is, and then that club face has already been kind of closed over. So all in all, I'd say it's definitely a good repeatable motion, but with a little bit of a swing going on, the open shoulders to the closed foot line, I'm assuming your hips are pretty straight. It's hard to tell with all black pants, but that can create a little bit of havoc with your spines, with your planes, and then your hands have to kind of be involved a little bit too much. So that's why I say some days you're probably really deadly, and some days it's good to be your opponent. I'm just saying. But let's take a guess where you're from. It's pretty chilly outside. Look at that snow. It's obviously not from right now. It's probably an older video. I think you said this is from last winter. But look at those long plains. Let's just go ahead and say Texas. Those Texas plains. That's about as high of a mountain as you can get in Texas, those top of the trees. Actually, no, there's probably some higher mountains than that. But hope that helps you. And let's see who is next. All right, next up we have Boyce. So Boyce, no notes at all and one video. So unfortunately, the same thing with you, Boyce. We didn't quite get the face on, and face on really helps me diagnose a little bit more. But I see that's a little bit of a challenge there with this big wood piling there. So if you do get a chance to get a face on, make sure you submit it to me, because that really helps. One side of this we can kind of diagnose it, but we really need that face on view. And face on is basically pointing the camera this way. So maybe put it on that mantle, get some fisheye lens, or ask a friend to help us out. But we'll try our best with what we have. Let's take a look at the swing before we draw some lines. Okay. Pretty simple motion there. Not much going on there. All right, so it's hard to tell what you're working on with no notes, and also You can see it's a slight pull. I'll tell you the slight pull is just not a lot of rotation on the way back, and it has to do with X factor and how that affects your exit path and the club face at impact. But you do a really good job. It's pretty simple. Let's take a look at some lines here. Okay, setup looks okay. It's not quite exactly down the line. So if you do send me down the lines, make sure it's down your foot line so I can see your alignment of your whole body. But it looks fairly neutral. Everything looks pretty much neutral position here. Let's draw the back brace line there. And then also some head movements. And then lastly, the spine angle. So things I like about your setup. Arms are hanging down naturally. You have this great spacing between your arms and your knees and your thighs, so you can definitely turn. However, I don't think you turn quite enough. So if you take a look as you take that clump back, it's probably right on plane just because of the angle of this camera. It's a little bit facing this way, so it's going to look like it's inside, but I bet you it's right on plane. But if we take a look as that the hands are going right up that path, right at this point, there's not a lot of hip rotation. You're doing a good job with your shoulders, but remember the hip needs to get going too. As a result, the club keeps going back. I'd say it's adequate. I still think you can get a little bit more hip turn. By turning your hips, your hand path will get lower because everything will turn with the body, and your hand path pulls back because of that lower body turn. That'll also help you out in the transition because as you get the turn going through, now all of a sudden your hands are really high. They're above that secondary plane line because of the lack of turn. Your shoulders are doing a really good job. The shoulders are matching where your original spine angle was. So it's not your shoulders. You got to get more turn going back to get that club to go inside these two little lines so you can drop it in the slot. You can see that club face is really steep because of the lack of turn on the way back. And now you start turning through. A little bit of a flipping going on there. I just don't see a lot of body motion. And because of that flippy to help you square that club face up, could shut the club face down. Hand path is now very close to the body. You can see the exit is coming in between. So just right there, you can see that club head coming right out. So now it's in between your lines, whereas before it was coming up over here. So you can see that manipulation as you hit the golf ball. It's just a little bit too much hands and arms due to the lack of turn. You have to make some spacing, so you lose a little bit of that posture. Your new spine angle is sticking up, which will also affect a lower finish. As you stand up, your hands get pull inside and go lower. So bottom line, good setup, good alignment from what I can see from this one video. Pretty good motion. It's very simple. I think you can really help yourself out by getting a little bit, establish your hip turn sooner and get those hands to pull back inside. Now I mentioned X factor. So X factor is the amount of separation between your hips and your shoulders at the top of the swing. Now you probably need at least 35 degrees of hip turn to get deep enough. We'll call that deep enough where your arms can pull back naturally. If you don't, you're stuck where you are. Your hands are, you're on the secondary plane line. They can't quite drop in the slot. Even though you might try and tilt and turn, they're always going to be coming from the outside. That's where the dreaded shank word comes from. We don't turn enough. Our hands get too high. We start hitting off the heel, sometimes the toe shank. But X factor. So if you have 30 degrees of rotation with your hips and 90 with your shoulders, you have 60 degrees of X factor. Doesn't mean that that's good because you haven't turned enough. So if you can get that 30 degrees to 40 degrees and have 100 degrees turn with the shoulders, you still have that 60 degree X factor, but now your hands are much lower, can follow the slot naturally, drop down and release. Now there's a thing called the X factor stretch. Now X factor stretch is at the top of the swing, sequencing if the hips go first and you can retain that shoulder turn, or it's the closure of the shoulders. So let's say you're at 100 and your hips now go from 40 degrees to 20 degrees, but you can somehow manage to hold that at 100 degrees. Now you have 80 degrees, so your 60 degrees X factor turned to 80 degrees X factor stretch, and that's just the uncoiling of the body. Tiger Woods was the best at this back in his late teen days all the way to about late 20s, and then injuries caught up to him, but he was the best. So if you want to go look at somebody with extreme X factor plus X factor stretch, look at any one of the Tiger Woods videos. Not to say that we can get like that, so you might want to check with your range of motion issues. You might have some lower back issues that might cause you to do this, or maybe your body's saying, I don't want to do that because I don't want to hurt myself. Your body's very clever at that stuff, so check that out. Let me guess where you're from. It's kind of dusky. That looks like a star, but that's not. That's your golf ball, but you probably want to hit it to the stars. Let's just say you are in, I'm not going to say Wichita. You are in Florida. Maybe. Let's see who's next. Okay, last on the chopping block is, I believe it's bass, B-A-S-S. Now I know that's also bass, but I don't know many people named Bass, so I'm just assuming your name is Bass. And if it's Bass, I apologize. So Bass, this is for you. Grew up playing hockey, so probably pounds the golf ball. Just got new clubs, starting to play more. He hits it as long as the PJ guys, straight or with a slight draw. My miss is a heavy draw, not quite a hook. I would give up 10 to 15 yards to be 10% more accurate. Great idea. I think most of us search for too much distance, and the problem when you get too much distance is you lose control, and then all of a sudden, the long balls are filled with, what is it saying? The woods are filled with long ball hitters. So let's work on getting some more consistency. So let's look at the swing. All right, definitely some weight issues going on here. I don't know what is causing that. Okay, so I have my suspicions what's causing this. Hear me out. Lower plane line, upper plane line. Look how narrow that is. You don't want it to be too narrow. That means your arms are getting too high, like Mo Norman. I mean, that's great for Mo Norman. I wouldn't really recommend Mo Norman's type of swing, even though some people do it really well. And he was one of the best ball strikers, but he was also a savant. And not many of us are savants, unfortunately. We're stuck with daytime jobs, sitting at the desk all day, getting tight backs. So let's take a look here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this too. Your weight, it's okay. I'd say it's a little bit toe heavy here. So maybe stand a little bit taller, slightly closer, drop the hands down a little bit to get some spacing between this plane line. You don't want to be too tight up there. But as a result, I mean, you can see your weight, it's a little bit too toe heavy. Now, as a result, your club pulls back inside. Now, what happens is counteractive forces, right, to make sure you're standing up. As your club pulls back inside, momentum takes some of that weight with it, and it's pulling your weight back. Now, your body's saying, I want to stay upright. My upper body needs to now tilt and fall forward to accommodate that weight going back, this weight of the club head and your arms. So you're getting to be kind of this. Arms are going this way, body's going this way to keep you balanced. And what happens is at the top of your swing, look how much your head has moved into the golf ball. And now your weight is kind of shifting in and closer and going right. Hey, this is a third lefty, 3 lefties. What are the odds? In and right. Now, when he goes in and right, this arm position already, shoulders have kind of leveled out because you took that club so far inside that pulls your your right shoulder, sorry, lefty, that pulls your right shoulder up. So there's just a lot of disconnection going on, but also weight distribution issues going on, which can play havoc, specifically with somebody strong as you, who can get away with more. I mean, you can get away with more than I can because you're physically stronger, and you're definitely an athlete, and I'm a borderline athlete. You do a pretty good job, though, getting the slot, but now momentum, watch this club head. You can see the momentum is going to take that club head below that plane line, and plus, because it's such a narrow plane line, now all of a sudden, that club head is coming so severe in that your only options are to either really flick your hands, and as a hockey player, I'm pretty sure you can flick your hands pretty quickly, where most of us in this position would be struggling, we'd be losing our posture, you're losing it a little bit here, and we'd be blocking these out all day long with the occasional rope hook to help compensate for that. And there's that flick, so you see that your hands are super fast from those hockey days, boom! So you're able to compensate, but look at how much posture you've lost right at impact. Now you're almost, look at that degree. You've kind of shoved into the golf ball, and part of that was from your backswing, but then your downswing, you still shoved into the golf ball. And then when you shove into the golf ball, your club goes from, let's say it's sitting here. As you stand up, this angle will fall down to here. And all of a sudden, it comes so far underneath the ball. So I'm sure your launch angles are really good. I'm sure your spin rates are really good, but there's just a little bit left to straighten you out. So I know that looks like, a Picasso painting right now with all those lines, but hopefully that makes sense to you, that you want to make sure that you're staying balanced. Now, There's no cure-all for this. I don't know your range of motions. I don't know how your body's going to adapt to this. I don't know your grip. I don't know your ball position just because you don't have a face-on view. I don't see any lateral slide because I don't have a face-on view. So this is just take it from the down the line. This is just half of the evaluation. So hopefully you can kind of see the importance of the face-on. So if you do have some time, send me a face-on so at least I can see the face-on and get back to you. But if you have any other questions, leave them in the notes. But really solid motion. I played with a couple of the LA Kings guys one day at my old facility. And I'll tell you what, every hockey player I've ever played with completely destroys the golf ball. But here's the big but. They're a little bit left and right, Army golf. So I know your pain. I know your capabilities. I know your abilities. Just keep controlled. Get your balance, footwork, just like hockey. On those skates, you start losing balance, you tip one way or the other, you're going to slip underneath. Same with golf, okay? Find your balance, stay balanced, hold your posture, limit the damages. Hope that helps you. See you guys next time. Don't forget, Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, Reddit Talk Live. Fairways and Greens.